Yeah.
Okay, Mike, we're ready whenever you are.
Okay, you're recording.
Okay, I'd like to call the Economic Development's meeting to order. It is Thursday, April 15th, 2021. It is 7:35 and roll call. And we'll just do it based, Joe will take the notes like he did in the past. So we have Zaga, myself, Jack Traver, Teddy. We got Steve, we got Robbie, and we have, what did I miss? Oh, I'm sorry. Katerina, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, public participation. Anybody there for public participation, Mike?
We have two. Catherine Camara has raised her hand. I'm going to allow her to talk.
Okay, go ahead. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, Catherine Camera, 31 Cottage Place. As soon as the meeting was over last week, I remembered what I wanted to say at the second participation. And that is that back in, I think it was 2017, when they were looking at the plan of development in town, there was at John Trumbull, open to the public, a workshop that allowed people, and it was really quite interesting, different ways that they had you look at properties and how you would want to see things in town. So what I was thinking is, I know you talked about the Sealy property and you know, all the people that have met and discussed it, but they're not residents living in the area or even residents in town. So I assume you could check with Mark Massoud as to what the preparations were. I'm not sure if it was him or can't think of the other guy's name there, but Musa, that ran that, but they would know about what it was. And it would be very interesting to do the same thing for the Sealy property, to get a feel of what the residents, and especially the residents living in that area, would like to see happen there. If the developer is interested to know that, I would think he might be. I don't know. Maybe he's already got his plan. And then on a second note on that, I was kind of disappointed at the planning and zoning meeting. I know you talk about trying to, you know, work together with planning and zoning. And at the end of the last meeting, they took the opportunity to pretty much trash me, which I thought was odd, because I spoke in public participation and no one said anything. I spoke at for a hearing and they didn't say anything. And quite honestly, I'm not sure that Mr. DeVito, who spoke at the end, should have been saying anything, because it was outside the public hearing. But anyway, their comments, you know, pretty much directed towards me. And what I found odd was that one of them was about the Shaker property, and very angrily talking about how, you know, people disrupted what went on there and everything. When, as a commission, they did their job. They granted the zone change there, and that's the end of it. As far as what the residents have the right to do, I'm sure that Shaker's attorney would have told him that, you know, you can go through this process, but that people have the right to appeal. It's just a matter of what people have the right to do. So I thought it was odd to say that, you know, there's no favoritism there, but then to be angry with residents for what they do. But then what was really odd, and not only myself and someone else noticed this, is then he made a comment about the Sealy property. And I'm sorry to say that it felt like to myself and someone else that it was saying like, well, you know, and don't forget the planning and zoning has the last word on the Sealy property. It didn't feel positive to me. I'm just letting you know that. I mean, I know you guys try to work with them, but and it's not just me. There was someone else who was participating who felt like it was like saying, you know, you want to mess around with the Shaker property. Well, let's see what we're going to do to you at the Sealy property. That's the way it felt. I'm not saying that that was the intention, but the way it came out, you know, if it was just me, I would think, okay, I'm hearing it that way, but it wasn't just me that kind of thought it felt like a dig. So that's not very positive for your relationship. What I see when I go to your meeting, that meeting, you know, it's not really adding up for the public to see this working together atmosphere. And I just thought I would let you know about that. So thank you. That's all the comments I have. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, Mike, is there anybody else?
I don't see any more hands raised, Mr. Prisoner.
All right. So I guess we'll close public participation. And we'll move on to the approval of the minutes of the March. Of the March 18th meeting. Is there a motion?
I make the
I'll make-
motion.
I'll second.
Patty and Steve? Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yes, that's unanimous. Okay. Okay, correspondence? None?
No correspondence.
Okay. Okay, we'll move right into Joe's report.
All right, you all got a copy of my report, so I'll run through it. The first item there, CERC, I still call it CERC, Advanced CT, put out a statewide call. They had a client who had a need for 50,000 to 100,000 square feet, and it was all over the state. I responded and said Watertown has property that meets that qualification, which is up at the former Emerson building, 1100 Buckingham Street next to Crystal Rock. As you can see there, the company is a charging network operator for electric vehicles and a major provider of smart changing software and equipment. They are seeking to open an assembly plant and will employ approximately 110 full-time employees within the first 5 years. I since got a memo from the person at Advanced CT who was in charge. He said, "Hi, Joe, I'm going to submit the Buckingham site for consideration." So we will be in the finalists for that. That would be a very nice in these days to have a 100,000 square foot building. And they want to be up and running, as you can see from your report, by fall 2021. So by fall of this year. I talked to Ed Godin, who has the property up for sale or lease, and he indicates he's got between 50,000 and 70,000 square feet. And the ceilings are 19 inches and they're asking for 20. So I think we're close enough that assuming no other town has the perfect location as the finalists, and they also did not want to particularly buy, they prefer to lease, but will consider a purchase. So I have a good feeling that we may be the final selection, but that waits to be seen. Item number 2 there, Ion Bank. Remember we went through the whole thing with Ion Bank and their appearance for their new building. Well, they decided not to build the new building. They, as you know, they're now in the 10-acre mall. In the meantime, when we've been talking to them and other people have been talking to them, Webster Bank in the Pioneer Plaza, which is right across the street on Straits Turnpike, is closing their branch. So Ion is simply going to move across the street to a former Webster Bank building. A plus for us because we don't lose a bank. Another plus for us because that will leave the property on 10-acre mall available for other commercial, other retail use. So I think it's more positive than negative. So I would like to have seen a new building where across from Manja there, but it's not going to happen with Ion Bank. Anytime you have any questions, just throw them in there.
Daga has a question.
Yeah, I think, it's important that people understand that there are reasons for not doing that with the expense. It just became prohibitively expensive for them to do the modified plan. And they spent in excess of $100,000 just doing the site plan and the changes and all that. So this worked out really well that Webster Bank was there. And it was a tough site to work with.
Yeah, it was.
Number 3, the 10-acre mall is now fully leased and most of the businesses are open. Jersey Mike's has been in touch with me, and I know the Chamber of Commerce is after him to join there. They want to do a ribbon cutting, and they contacted me, and I said, of course, I'll supply everything but the ribbons. I mean, I don't have a budget for ribbons, but I can get the local officials who would like to be there, and that of course will get some publicity and some cameras, which is the purpose of a ribbon cutting, is to get some publicity for the business. So
Joe, they did the grand opening yesterday with a ribbon cutting.
sorry, I didn't hear.
Jersey Mike's did a grand opening yesterday, including a ribbon cutting.
Oh, they did.
An article in today's paper on it. They had sent out a flyer. I know came in our house at least 2 weeks ago. It included coupons because they were doing this in cooperation with the police department. That for everybody that bought a sub, donation was made to the police benevolent society or a police fund. And then they gave out other coupons, and they had a lot of people that came, but they actually did their ribbon cutting. And they announced that several weeks ago that was going to be done on the 14th. So
Well, they never got back to Joe on that.
Well, and
it's done.
that's fine as long as they're
Okay.
open. I've disappeared visually.
Yeah. There
Yeah.
was, and it was covered by the press, so she did a kind of a sloppy job of it, but there was an article today in the paper, and I think it's going to be in the town cards next week.
Yeah, well, I saw the article, but I thought maybe that was more of a soft opening, but I didn't realize it was a ribbon cutting.
Cutting, they had a flyer that went out. I don't know if everybody else got it. It was a nice, big card, full color, grand
Yeah.
opening on April
No.
15th.
Never got anything.
And,
Nope, same here.
Did you get it?
No, never saw anything. And I only knew about Jersey Mike's opening up. I had seen some postings on some social media and posting very happy that they're open. And I thought, oh, I didn't get any heads up or,
It was like a
Yeah.
card, but like a 8x11 card
Yeah,
almost
no,
that had full color, and it had pictures of Jersey Mike's that had little coupons for, and it announced their program with the police department.
yeah, maybe push up a little bit.
I always get nervous. I mean, obviously, any business we're excited to come in. I always just get nervous with chains. We do have a lot of cool little places around here to get sandwiches and stuff. So hopefully it doesn't, add to the stress of any of our local places. But
Oh, turnout was great. I've never been to a Jersey Mike's, but it was good. It was good.
It's got a reputation that I didn't know about, but I guess it's people love it. So,
Yeah.
and did you see literally were officials there with the ribbon cutting, or was it just an opening?
It was, officials were there. Mark Ramo was there. Town manager
Okay.
was there. Officials were there from the police department, from agency.
Okay, well,
Who else? There were quite a few. I didn't attend, but I went later and I got it.
I put them in touch with other people and said, arrange it, and they obviously did. So I'm happy that was done, frankly. Item number 4 there, Attorney Pillacy is proposing for the Sealy property a text amendment for the zoning. And they are proposing retail commercial square feet development shall consist of 12,000 square feet per acre with a maximum building height of 25 feet. That's reasonable. Residential development, 16 units per acre shall be allowed with a maximum square footage of 2,200 square feet per unit. And then if vertical construction of professional office space or residential units are incorporated above the retail commercial space, and this is the part that got my attention, the maximum height of any building shall be 65 feet from ground level to peak of roof line. Our current standards limit a building to 35 feet. And the former Wells Fargo Bank building on Main Street exceeded that just a little bit after they built it, and they got in some controversy. So in my very rough calculation, this would allow the building to be twice the height, almost twice the height of our current maximum allowance. Now, the only, and you have a copy of the memo I sent to Mark Massoud. I sent it to you guys. And I got one for you here, Joe.
Yes,
That's it.
yes.
Okay. The maximum height is what we were concerned about, and I'm going to be very generally conceptual here. If they allow a building to be 65 feet high, and it's either retail or residential, it is conceivable, not likely, not probable, but it's conceivable that they could put up a number of buildings on that property right on the corner, because they also asked for a variance in setbacks from front and side property lines from 50 feet to 25 feet. It is conceivable they could put up a number of basically 2 to 3 story buildings on the property. I don't think they intend to, but if the planning and zoning approves their ability to do that, it's called a planned, it's called the Sealy Oakville Center Plan Development District. It will be a separate zoning district. SOCPPD, it stands for Sealy Oakville Center Plan Development District. And if it gets approved, that's my only concern. And I don't think they're going to do that. But if this becomes a regulation and in subsequent years, somebody buys the property or decides to do it, it's conceivable. You want in on this, Joe? Or no?
Yeah, I mean, what really annoys the shit out of me, to be honest with you, to be very, very blunt. I mean, come to us for a 65-foot building, even being proposed. When, if you take it from the corner of Main Street and Hillside Avenue, that building would be approximately 100 feet tall from that point, from ground level. And I use ground level as Main Street. I mean, you know, imagine what that would look like. I mean, if this was ever approved. I mean, it's you know, to me, it's a ridiculous request. I mean, we know we've already submitted paperwork. They know what the advanced CT said. We know we want a little village setting. And a little village setting is not 65 feet tall. And like I said, 100 feet tall from the intersection or from Main Street perspective. So I don't even know why this is even being discussed or what the purpose is behind it, but it's a little bit ridiculous from my perspective. I have to be very blunt about it. I usually try to tiptoe around a lot of this stuff, but this is just not right to even ask the question from my perspective.
I think at the end of the day, right, it just ends up always being they're trying to make that piece of property as profitable for their, you know, their plans, right? So they're trying to add as much square footage that they possibly can into that small space so that they make more money in the end or whatever. And I agree with you.
But it has to fit into the surround. No, I appreciate it. Right? But I mean, it has to fit into the surrounding areas.
Yeah.
There's nothing in Watertown that would be anything equal to that.
No, it would look crazy.
And it wouldn't be, and I can't, the fire department wouldn't approve this anyway. We don't have a ladder truck. We have nothing that would go that high.
And the other thing that Phyllis is proposing is retail commercial square feet development shall consist of 12,000 square feet per acre with a maximum building height of 25 feet. So most of their retail is going to be 25 feet high, which is completely in standards, and will allow 12,000 square feet per acre, and there are 16 acres there. So I don't see them putting up a lot of buildings. I mean, the higher one was proposed as if they had retail on the ground floor, and then it'd be in essence 2 stories above that for residential. That's the 65 feet issue.
Zaga, go, please.
I'm really confused. Does anybody know what the height of the Sealy building was, the one that was demolished?
It was a one-story building.
It was a one-story building?
One-story building. Then the warehouse, I think, might have been, well, no, it was a one-story building, but it had high ceilings for storage, for warehousing.
Yeah. Do you know what zone it's in?
I do right now. It's been zoned BC.
Okay, if you look at, okay, that's where I'm confused, because we know that there are maximum height limits that go with all the zones, the various zones in Watertown. I know a BC height limit is 50 degrees, 50 feet high. The downtown district one is 50 feet high. The adjoining zone next to where he would have his, I think is a BG1, and that has a maximum height of 40 feet. So there are only, when it comes to business zones, and I was looking at the zoning map to see where this is, and it's such a hodgepodge, but I don't know if those standards are still applicable, then the zone for BC is actually a 50-foot high already. Now, I don't know if that's been modified since, because the zoning map that is on the website still says it's a BC at 50 feet high buildings. And there are only 2 business zones in Watertown that are 35 or under, and one is the business office, and I forget what the other one was. There were only 2 that actually had a maximum height, allowable height of 35 feet. So I'm not sure what applies or why there is a limit of only 35 feet throughout Watertown, if that's what you were saying, when the zoning map is all over the place.
Was my understanding that generally speaking, the max height is 35 feet.
Well, on the map, on this one, because, and I didn't look at all the other restrictions. I just went down through all the various zones to see what is allowable. Why would somebody come in with something this different from what is around? And the very last line on all of the restrictions and regulations for zones gives you the maximum height of buildings. And when you look at that, it's all over, and there are only 2 that say 35. Now, I know downtown, those buildings exceed, they're allowed to have 50 feet high, and some of those buildings have 50 feet high. You have the retail underneath, and then you have 3 apartments above. That's how you've got 3 stories to go above a building. But I don't know what regulations or what applies or what doesn't apply. I'm sure it'll all work its way out. But that's why I was confused when I saw that, you know, the maximum is 35 feet, when in fact, if you're looking at all the zoning regs, it's all over the place. And the zones are so tiny, some of them. You know, like an adjoining zone can be very different from the zone next to it. So maybe it's time to reevaluate all the zoning laws.
But 65 is still, would give you another story and a half above the tallest regulation that you can find. And it certainly would be far above anything in that immediate area, except for the pin shop. And the pin shop predates anything that in recent history.
I'm not arguing the fact that that's very high.
Yeah.
Absolutely not arguing that, but I'm saying it becomes very confusing when you look to see what is allowed and what isn't allowed, and what somebody could take you to court on because the zoning law actually says this. And I don't know, maybe people just don't construct to the maximum that they're allowed to construct, which is kind of nuts if they don't.
But one thing I said to Joe earlier, I hope that P&Z would ask for a conceptual drawing of what they're talking about. I mean, it's pretty tough to change or vary that far away from regulations on a blank piece of paper.
I don't think they've submitted anything, have they?
No, but I'm saying, but before you would go ahead and do something like this, it'd be nice to know what their plan is, or why are they asking that question? They're asking the question for some reason. And maybe, and maybe I'm dead wrong. Maybe we find out that whatever they want to propose wouldn't look that bad or wouldn't be so intrusive. But it would be nice to know versus just, talking, because it's pretty darn hard to visualize 65 feet on that property. So I mean, that would be just, it just makes me nervous that P&Z potentially could approve something on a blank piece of paper without actually seeing a
Have they
regulation.
taken it up yet? I don't think they
There's a
have.
public hearing coming up. I was just in the paper today,
Next meeting.
next meeting.
Wow.
So. But I know that they thankfully know they had at least a public hearing is going to take place and people can have an input into it.
And you've already submitted, so that's good.
And at some point, I don't know whether the commission will want me or Joe, somebody to write a letter at public hearing stating whatever our position is. I present the information and you guys can decide what the commission's position would be. They are proposing to amend the zoning regulations in accordance with section 60, the adopted Sealy Oakville Center Plan Development Districts, SOCPDD, shall be shown on the zoning map. So, and I'm not the world's expert on zoning, but it looks to me like they're suggesting a separate zone for this particular project. And that's, towns do it all the time, so I don't know that that's a big deal. But and they spell out, I have Phyllis's letter here, and they spell out exactly what they want to do with it and all the permitted uses and that sort of thing. So it's something for us to look at anyway.
But the permitted uses, what they've asked for is fine. I'm not opposed to any of what they're asking to put there. Potentially. They're basically asking for mixed use, and they are asking for a possibility of a piece of residential in there. But you know, I'd still want to know exactly what this thing would look like, or why would you need a 65-foot building? Even if it's only one 65-foot building, it doesn't have to be 3 or 4, just one. It'd be nice to know what the plan is and what that's going to look like. You know, I've harped on this forever on a Sealy property. This is a once in a generation opportunity we have to make that right for the center of Oakville. They sat there for decades, you know, just crumbling, and we got it cleaned up, and now it's a time we can get this thing right and make something very appropriate for downtown Oakville.
Yeah, I'll read the purpose as Phyllis lays it out. It's pretty encompassing. The purpose of this zoning area shall be to accommodate the redevelopment of the Sealy property. The goal is to provide for general commercial rental, professional space, and residential uses. The goal is to encourage the orderly development of the property and provide an opportunity for creative and flexible architectural design, the sound interrelationship of buildings, pedestrian and vehicular circulation, landscaping, parking areas, and business uses. And then he goes on to the specific. So they're planning, this would allow just about anything residential and commercial, and I don't know about you, that's fine with me.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't have a problem with what they're saying that the usage is going to be. It's just that I get very nervous when somebody starts talking about a 65-foot building for that spot.
Do you know what section 60 is?
What section 60 is?
I do not know what section 60. I have my book here. I'll look it up after we get done with my report.
Curious to know why they, on
And-
what basis they're doing
Now, let me finish my report and I'll go to my desk and get section 60. Number 5 in my report is another issue. Corey Shaker has plans to present an application. I emailed that to you also, some site plans, some schematics of what they're planning to do at the next meeting of Planning and Zoning regarding the demolition of the current Jeep, Dodge, and Ram showroom on Main Street and replicate it with a building which would house new showrooms and offices. He submitted front elevation plans for the appearance of the building, which I have sent to each member of the EDC for your consideration. It's later on the agenda. I don't know where you want to adjust it.
Yeah, we can talk about it under new business.
Okay, we'll talk about that under new business. The 6th item in my report is I have received renewed interest from Toll Brothers. They're a national housing builder concerning the 300 acres on Bunker Hill Road now owned by Heritage Group. It's across from the O'Panelitis and the current Planner's Choice property. In several conversations with Toll Brothers, New England regional manager, I have suggested what an advantage building age-restricted housing would have for the town, specifically the positive impact it would have on our schools budget. Toll Brothers will resume discussions with the current owners. I did a Zoom meeting this morning with the Chamber of Commerce, and I gave my report there. Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Villanueva, was also in that Zoom meeting. I did confirm with her that it costs at least $10,000 per student to educate a student. So if Toll Brothers built non-age restricted, then somebody could buy a townhouse or whatever they're going to build, move in with 3 children, and the cost to the town per child would be greater than the taxes on the property. So I was really encouraging them, and they've done it before. Toll Brothers have done this before, building age restricted 55 and up. I think that would be a home run for that property.
I might be in the minority of this, as I normally am. But you know, any kind of development's great. I definitely just want everyone to always remember like the repercussions of things, like, you know, the younger people in this town that do have children, our education system is so important, and it's constantly cut. It's going to be cut again, $900,000 this year. Those kind of housing developments just guarantee the budgets to never get passed. That group of population very rarely ever says yes to an education budget. They don't have children. They don't care. It's kind of past their time, so to speak, to worry about it. So I would just like to put that out there, because we do always talk about 55 and over and how great it would be. And I don't necessarily know if it's as much of a home run as everybody wants to say, but I'll just put my opinion.
I like to add something to that.
Charlie
Hey,
Milligan
Charlie.
is here. Hi, Charlie.
Hey, so, you know, as a first-time dad, and I kind of agree with Robbie on this one, though, age restricting, I'm kind of concerned now with the education in this town, since I'm staying around here. So I don't think that would be a good idea, though.
And my purpose was simply economics. And Robbie, I don't want to get resentful of you, but just because you don't have children and you're old doesn't mean you don't want kids and have a good education system.
Right, Robbie.
No, I know, but we watch what happens in town, you know, just saying.
Yeah.
And we look at who's voting, and that population is really causing a hard time. And I have no children. I have no plans on ever having children, but I still pay and still want to see our education system be
As I
pretty
suspect
stellar,
all of us do.
you know?
But Robbie, also, I think what Joe didn't say is that one of the questions asked by Toll Brothers is what happens if they did a blend of age restricted and non-age restricted houses in that area. So, you know, that would be a combined, and that maybe goes to the heart of what you're saying. There would be a blend of both types of housing.
Yeah, I just, you know, like I said, I mean, it's my opinion. I just put it out there, but we just see it every year. I mean, that we had almost over a decade where the budget never passed until like the third time, and our education system has gotten worse over the, you know what I mean? I'm just putting it out there. It's not going to change my opinion, and you know, that being a good use of property. But
Yep.
And guys, I'm just coming from the point as being the dad of the newest resident to Watertown.
Well, congratulations,
Yeah.
Charlie.
Yeah.
And yeah, they did mention a blend. Toll Brothers is not particularly happy with 55 and above because it limits their market. So,
Right.
you know, they're going to talk to the owner of the property and propose whatever they propose. Just from my perspective, pure economics. But
yeah, exactly.
okay.
I won't try and
But-
fight it if it happens.
But do they have to use that for housing, though? That's the other question. Could we redevelop that into anything else?
Yes, well, it's currently zoned for condos. When Heritage Woods bought it almost 20 years ago, they got it approved for age-restricted condos, like Heritage Village. That's what they were proposing. And it got it approved. They planning and zoning approvals run for 5 years. They've been in for their 5th renewal, so it's been at least 15 years. And I am just looking, frankly, for use of the property. It's sitting there. Now they're paying their taxes on vacant land, and they spent $1 million getting water and sewer to the property. So the town's not losing anything by it sitting there. but it's 300 acres that if they don't want to build condos, and they apparently haven't for the last probably 20 years now, then could we use it for something else? And Charlie, yes, it would require a zone change, but it could be.
And I'm
used
just
for-
thinking, like, we're always complaining that there's stuff, we don't have enough room on Straits Turnpike for stuff. I mean, that could be a warehouse. Like, I know, like, their plant's going to be expanding. I mean, I know they got bought out, but I mean, that's, planning for the future. I mean, I've talked to a couple real estate agents, when I was house hunting, so they're saying like condos are past their time right now. Like, it's really just a housing market though. So we might be waiting another 10, 15 years then. If they ever built anything.
No, Charlie, were you at the last meeting we had?
No, I was not.
Okay, so, but we did mention that in the past, there was a business park proposed for that site. But there was a fight between planning and zoning and the developer, who was the same Heritage Woods, basically. And because of that disagreement, now we're talking a long time ago. We're not talking about anybody that's currently involved with politics in Watertown. But there was an argument, and somebody basically called their bluff. They thought they were going to call their bluff, and the people developed the business park walked away. So, if things had been different, none of that 300 acres would even be available today. That would have taken place, and we would have been probably made a lot of money by now if we rolled the clock back 20 years, and how much money we've lost because someone was willing to play a little bit of Russian roulette here. But anyhow, we'll see what the future holds. But Joe and I the genesis of this, Joe and I talked probably 6-8 months ago, maybe longer. We sent a number of letters out to Toll Brothers, Del Webb, a lot of developers, national developers, because we knew that Pulte, because we knew at the time that the Regency and Prospect was being completed, and they have a lot of development going on in Middlebury, and so we know that in the area, if they did sell out Prospect again, which they did, then there must be a demand for that type of housing. So we reached out, try to be proactive and reach out to a lot of these major developers. First, we didn't hear it back from anybody, and then all of a sudden, Toll Brothers did. They must have put in a file someplace, because they did reach out to Joe. So it was well worth the letter. So we'll just have to see what the outcome is. But it's a positive step. Just the fact that they've acknowledged that the land is there, and they're willing to talk to Heritage Woods about possibly buying the land. So let's see where it goes. But again, I wouldn't have any problem at all if they did a mixed development there. So.
Finishing up my report here, number 7, thank you, Robbie, for informing us about the rock garden. I didn't know about that. Sad to see them go out of business. It's sad to see any business go out. You suggested we write a letter of recognition for their long service, and we can certainly do that. I can certainly do that. I do not know who the owner is, and it's the only official records the town has is the landlord, and that wouldn't be that. Do you have any contact with them, Robbie? You know who it would be?
I know somebody that knows who he is. His name is Tony, but I don't know him personally, but I can get his information for you. I didn't want to give you homework. I didn't know.
No, it was a good idea. No, it's a good idea.
I just didn't know if we had like a letter already or something. You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
figured you already had something to just send. I was just curious, because it definitely was like a struggle for him, I think, before COVID. I think they were having some issues, and so I don't know, especially in this climate, it's just kind of interesting to get some feedback maybe from people of what made them close, or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Did you get a sense that it's irrevocable, that they're definitely going to close, that if there was help that came from some, in terms of funding or some grant monies, tax-free grant monies, that maybe it would make a difference and keep them going until summertime when everything opens up again? Or was it just like, that's it, we're not doing any, and no possibility of reversing that decision to close? The only reason I'm asking is because there's that new program that was launched by the United States Small Business Administration, and it's called restaurant revitalization program, and in part of that package that Biden signed, there is $28.6 billion put into this restaurant revitalization fund, and they're opening up for tax-free grants that, and it's targeted to restaurants, but it's beyond restaurants. You can also have food trucks, you can have bars, you can have saloons, you can have anything related to the food industry that has suffered through COVID. And there was a study that they did that said there were about 1 billion of small restaurants in the country. So if you divided that $28.6 billion by restaurant, it would be $28,600 that they could get. The grants are going out now, the applications are going out now, and the Small Business Development Center is doing 2 workshops in all the regulations and how you use it, how you apply, what the restrictions are, who's most eligible. And there's one tomorrow, and I signed up for it. It's a webinar from 9:30 to 10:30, and then they're doing another one on the 20th. Now, I don't know whether, because officially you can get in the millions of dollars. I think it was up to 5 million a grant. But if you divided it evenly, it came out to like a minimum of 28,600. But there is some help that's there now, and people just don't know about it. That's why I was looking for a database of businesses. If we knew all the restaurants in town, we could email them the webinar information, and they could at least find out, what the program is all about, how you apply, because it's going to be, the money is going to be grabbed up. That there's no question. If anybody's interested, if you go, I actually got it from one of the sites that I was looking at, the websites I was looking at, just to see how they work in economic development. But if you go on the Small Business Development, Connecticut Small Business Development Center site, they do have the webinars. They're free. It's only an hour, but they're going to go through everything. And I did register for the morning one tomorrow morning. So I don't know if anybody else is interested, or down the 20th, they're doing another one, 9:30 to 10:30. It's just an hour. It would be great just to get the information out, because there's so many others that are just hanging on and did hang on, by a thread. So this money, and it can be used for anything. It can be used for ongoing expenses. There are very few restrictions on how you use it.
Well, yeah,
Any
you're
chance
right.
that-
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to know if, would that webinar be played at any other time other than just the morning? Say for those of us that would be unable to participate or look into it, if there's any evening hours at all for
Well, they
that.
did with this one. There were just those 2 that I saw. And but what they normally do is that they keep that on tape as well, so that if and if you go on their website, you can get the phone number to call, but it may be possible for you to watch it at any time at your convenience. But I think time is of the essence, because the program has just been launched, so everybody that kind of knows about it and knows how to apply and can fill out those forms, stand a much better chance of getting some funding.
Thank you.
Yeah, they
I'll find out for
generally,
you, Catalina.
most webinars are recorded and you have access to them in the future. So, number 8 on my report, I'm pleased that 2 storefronts in Main Street and downtown Oakville have now been leased, and one is operating, the other is to open soon. So, some go out and some come in. And I'm always distressed to see them go out, and I'm always pleased to see new ones come in. So there's a couple of new storefronts in downtown Oakville that have been occupied.
So I think that only leaves one storefront in downtown Oakville, which would be the old Dunkin' Donuts. But I believe everything else now has been taken. Or it's been leased anyway. I think there's still, to Joe's point, there's still another store that's going to be opening shortly, but I believe everything in Oakville is filled right now. So that's the first time in a long time that's happened. So Robbie's even smiling.
No, I'm laughing because you're gone.
I know, I decided instead of trying to bend and twist and move around, I figured just let me bow out and just, my hand is here somewhere.
Let me just tell you, we thought we were going to be in the conference room as we usually are, but some things came up that didn't allow that to happen. So we kind of had to improvise in my office. And on most Zoom meetings, I can get rid of that background and none of this happens, but tonight I couldn't in time. So You know, if you move, you disappear. That's,
This camera that Joe has probably, it's maxed out at about 4 megapixels. So.
hey, it cost me $15. And then last, and this will get a little something of what you were saying, Zaga, too. And I did get your memos. I think all the other members of the commission did about website. Work continues on the website, and that could be a place to post all of this information. That's why I'm personally very anxious to get that done and revised. I had some talk a couple of years ago with a small business of Connecticut, and the then head of it came to see me, and she's very engaging, and they offer a whole lot of things. And I said, well, let me put your link on our current website, on our economic development side. And she says, well, that's proprietary because of a deal they have with UConn. So they said, we can tell them where to go, but we won't provide the link. So
Maybe it's changed because a lot of the websites, and I targeted the ones that were mostly in our population type range, so that you weren't going rural, you weren't going multi-million-dollar people. Almost all of them had the link to the CSBDC as well as the SBA.
yeah,
And that's why I got this. I was looking at Southbury's, and it had the link to Connecticut Small Business Development Center, and I went on that. And lo and behold, the two things that first came up were these two on the new program, because there's need for spreading that information. So maybe it's changed. It's worth a try again. I mean,
yeah,
other guys are doing it. You know, got to find out how Southbury's doing it, but almost all those others have the same links. So
I will revisit it because it's a gold mine of information for businesses.
I used to be the Associate State Director for the Small Business Development Center. So, but I retired 16 years ago, and we did workshops galore. I know it has gone through so many changes and transitions that there had to be a time where it was very proprietary in that change, because I've seen the organization change from what was vibrant with 20 offices around the state to really absorbed within UConn's fold. So, but maybe it's worth a try. I think they've loosened up. Maybe they found that they have to allow other people to have direct links to them so that they can publicize their workshops and whatnot.
Do you have the business list that you have?
Yes,
Can you break out the restaurants?
it only has names and addresses.
Okay.
Yes,
By the name, I can probably identify
Okay.
most of them.
Because if we could do that, then maybe Zaka could help us. We'll get the information she's speaking of. We can send them an email. And
See,
just,
that would be great.
yeah,
Great.
Yeah, let me break. We bought a list of businesses, and I got it, and I think I mentioned to you before, I tried to copy it, which I did, but that invalidated my ability to use it because they have built into their software. They don't want people buying it once and using it 1,000 times. So I've now found a way. I have it in my contacts, so I can send individual. Now, it's not broken out by, they don't call it SIC code anymore, but it's not broken out by business, but I can go through the list. There aren't all that many restaurants, and probably identify restaurants. So, and I will do that.
Yeah, if there was any way, and it's too late for tomorrow's, but on the 20th, there's another one. I think it's
Yeah.
like Tuesday or whatever. Maybe some of them could, or at least then watch the other video or go online and get information on this program. It's just a shame not to let them know if it can save somebody.
okay.
And that ends my report. If you want to move in, and I can.
No, it's okay. My head will pop in once in a while. So. Okay, the budget. I'm sorry, good. Under old unfinished business. Budget, it looks like we may be gonna suffer a little bit on the budget side. Might be a few small cuts to what our request was. But Joe and Mark are still working on that, so let's see what becomes of it. It looks like 90% of our budget is still intact. So there might be a little something that maybe have to be sacrificed because of the cuts that
Bill's got to take a cut.
What's that?
Those got to take the cut.
Yep, he's gonna take the cut.
I'm going to disappear on that one.
So let's see what the meeting outcome is, so, or what Mark's final budget it looks like at this point.
No, if that's hurt, you can go up.
No, I'm fine, no. Item B was the Main Street storefront discussion. Let's, again, until COVID is behind us, so we can get working on that. Let's just keep that on the agenda as a reminder. But I promise that won't go away. We'll act on that sooner than later. As Joe mentioned, the 10-acre mall opening continues, and it's all been leased now. And soon there'll be other few extra businesses where the Ion Bank used to be when they move across the street. So that's a very positive. And just to reiterate what John Lombard said, if it wasn't for the success of the 10-acre mall, he would have never purchased the Sealy property. He took that as a big plus for Watertown, and Watertown's willingness to improvise, we'll call it. So not sticking to our guns and let the old Kmart sit there for 20 years waiting for one tenant to go in. So he was very complimentary of what was done in that site between economic development and planning and zoning. So,
You know what else is going in there? It looks like there's a space in between the gym and Ace.
we don't have all the details, but we do know that it's all been leased.
In the
So
paper today.
what's that?
What it is?
Is a chiropractor going in?
Oh, I didn't know.
I didn't see the paper yet today, Teddy.
Yeah, it's in there. They listed all the different businesses.
Okay.
That's it. You mean the Town Times, Teddy?
Pretty sure it either that or the Waterbury paper.
All
Okay.
right. Well,
I think it was the Waterbury paper.
I didn't finish reading it today, so.
Okay. The item D, Joe just mentioned that about that business looking for 100,000 square feet, and so that's good, well in Joe's hands. So
What's the
see what
one?
the
You
outcome.
said it was on Buckingham Street, the one that you were thinking, Joe?
what's that? I'm sorry.
It was on Buckingham Street, the site that you were thinking?
Yeah, the one next to Crystal Rock.
Oh,
Used to be
okay.
Emerson, used to be the old Scobles.
Yep.
So I met, a lot of people don't know it yet, but Emerson is moving out as of June 1st. So when I was part of the move-in team back in 1987, we moved up here with about 650 employees.
Wow.
And so the last 40 employees that are there now are going to be moved to Brookfield. Emerson has another facility there, a company called Branson. And so they're going to share that facility, and the people will have to go out there. I guess, I'm not sure if they're going to have to go 5 days a week because of people got used to working at home with COVID. So they might be able only have to go out there maybe 3 days a week and work from 2 days at home. So it would
Yeah.
lessen the trek up there. I mean, I worked there for 40 years and I got so darn spoiled. I live off of Buckingham. I drove exactly 1.5 miles to work for 40 years. And I was thinking the other day, how many thousands and thousands of dollars I saved on cars and gasoline to make that trek. So, but it's sorry to see. I mean, like I said, it went from 650 jobs to nothing. That's a sad thing to see.
And that could make more space available for this new client.
Right,
If they
exactly.
decide to take it. So.
Yeah, because it is Class A office space. I mean, it's very nice setting in there. So. The Sealy preliminary meeting, we already talked
We
about
talked
that.
about
Yeah, we
that
talked about
last-
that last meeting. So let's see. Hopefully everybody keeps an ear on to what this public hearing is about and see what happens. And if anybody can go to that public hearing, we'll likely send another letter to P and Z regarding the 65-foot height. So again, I don't think anybody on P and Z, on EDC, has an issue with anything that was mentioned as possible uses of the site. I think that 65-foot building scares a lot of people, including me. But let's see, probably the only thing I think if we can agree, we'll send a letter just again, just reemphasizing that 65 foot is very troubling for that site. And if, I don't know if anybody disagrees or not, or if we need a vote for that. Anybody have a comment or a thought on that?
I'm in favor of the letter.
Yeah, and at least, you know, somewhere in there, just, I don't know, having consideration for the neighborhood or something. So
Mhm.
if they do maybe talk to the neighbors or somebody, you know what I mean?
Yep.
At the end of the day, we might not like it, but we don't have to really deal with it that much. But maybe the other, you know, businesses or people who own homes there, that would negatively affect them, kind of thing. So
Yeah, because the Ball Farm Road people would be really
Right.
the most affected by that. So, any other comments or thoughts?
Why don't you go testify, Joe?
We would, I would still send a letter, but we can certainly go and talk.
Because you're so much more effective when you talk and you explain and your passion comes through.
Yep. I mean, me and Joe have done that before, where we've sent a letter and then just gone to the hearing, and just to to speak to the letter. I'm not here to scare them off, obviously. It's been, Joe and I have been working on this since Joe's really came to work for Watertown. We've had a lot of discussions with Sealy and a lot of people in the process. So I'm certainly don't want to do anything to scare them out of town. But again, there has to be a little bit of compromise there, I think, too.
and I would be willing to go to the hearing just to at least be there, just to be a presence from EDC.
No, everybody's more than welcome. Whoever would like to go to that meeting, we certainly would encourage you to go too.
Do you have a sense of why he wants a zone change like that you can't work within the existing zone?
No, and that's why I was saying it's too bad we couldn't get a conceptual drawing or some, just some artist rendition of what the thought is for that. I mean, if it's a 65-foot tower and you're gonna put a bell tower there, then that's one thing. But if it's gonna be a 65-foot apartment building, then that's another thing. So it would be wonderful just to have some idea of what the 65-foot is all about.
Well, the official request is if vertical construction of professional office space or residential units are incorporated above the retail commercial uses, then the maximum height of any building shall be 65 feet from ground level to peak of roof line. So they're limiting this just to residences above a retail business. I don't think it would incorporate or include a 3-story apartment building, according to this. It says if vertical construction of professional office space or residential units are incorporated above the retail commercial use, the maximum height of any building shall be 65 feet from ground level to peak of roof line. So
So
that's
if you have
officially what Phyllis has proposed.
a height of 20 feet and add 35 feet on top of it, that's 55 feet, right? Or 60 feet.
See, and that's the danger of these things, that they submit this thing comes up and then we all try to guess at what this means in the implications, and to just do it off of a plain piece of paper is pretty dangerous, because you definitely could have buyer's remorse if you approve something like this.
Well, the advantage of
But
going,
again, I don't know, because there's not enough information to deal with here. I wish there was a little bit more meat to what they're asking, or a little bit more detail of what exactly they're looking to do. Then the guesswork wouldn't have to be going into all this and all the what ifs, and by nature, what ifs tend to be negative anyway. So,
well, yeah, and in a public hearing, Mr. Pillacy would be there to answer this question of why did he put that in there and what does it mean and what's he thinking about? So it's not like we could get some additional answers by going to the meeting and voicing our question anyway. I don't know that well, I guess we are opposed, but we're going to phrase it as a concern that we
Right.
have, and then see if we can get some explanation of what he intends to do.
and I think maybe with this letter, number one, and number two, Joe can certainly talk to Mark Massoud, and at least Franklin would be prepared to answer that question at the public hearing. So that would add a lot of clarity to this, so, yeah. So, so would somebody like to make a motion that we send a letter, regarding the height of 65 feet?
I make the motion.
Okay, Teddy,
Second.
Robbie, second it. Any discussion? My motion's made and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous? Okay, unanimous.
Okay,
Okay, as Joe mentioned, the EDC website, we're still working on that. We should have something, we'll send it to you, Robbie and Zaga. Because that we sort of come up with that subcommittee. We'll just give you an overview of what we're looking at right now before we take it to the whole commission. Would that be okay?
So I sent a memo out.
you
I don't
did.
know if you got your email.
Yeah.
I did a little bit of work in preparation for this, and I know Robbie did read his. What I did is I looked at I separated the towns. That out of the 169 towns in the state of Connecticut, there are 14 towns that fit into the population demographics of Watertown. Watertown with 22,000 is right in the middle of the range of towns.
Mhm.
And the towns that I looked at were, Monroe, Bethel, Southbury, Rocky Hill, New Canaan, Berlin, Bloomfield, Darien, Guilford, North Haven, Wyndham, Simsbury, and Ridgefield. And I looked at each of their sites and looking, first of all, to see how easy it was to get to an economic development site from their main site, the ease of use, and then how you maneuver around that, and then how complete and user-friendly the information on the EDC site was, and did it contain links to not only local, but state and federal resources and sources of assistance and financing, all that. And then were there specific links to webinars, workshops, and forums organized by state, local, or federal sources? And then was there a mechanism for capturing information for a local business database? Because if you don't have a database of local businesses, including their emails, you really have no way of reaching out to them or disseminating information when you have something that comes up like this restaurant revitalization fund, or even if you're doing a workshop or a seminar where you want to poll them. But if you have that database of local businesses, you can easily do it in a timely fashion. And it's not something that you buy. There was one, Monroe actually had a list of all the businesses, but most of the people respected the privacy of business owners, and sometimes they don't want all their emails and things listed where somebody can access them. So they did a voluntary, like Southbury did a voluntary form where a business could sign up if they wanted to get news releases from them or email announcements or any information that was important to their business. And the EDC of those towns actually guaranteed and promised that none of those would be sold or released to the public for use, but it would simply be as communication from the EDC to the businesses, and it works very well. And that way, information can pass quickly. Of all the sites that I looked at, and maybe you want to look at it, my favorite was Southbury's. I mean, it just encompassed everything. It started with how do I, went to a link of everything, and then easy to maneuver. And then the second one was Simsbury's. And they reminded me of our Park and Rec site, which is also extremely easy to maneuver. So, at least that's, and I don't know if Robbie, you got a chance to look at the Southbury site.
Yeah. Yeah, it was one of the ones that I looked at first, just because I knew size-wise and nearby and stuff like that.
19,000 as opposed to
Yeah.
22,000. What did you think of the Southbury site?
I mean, I feel like we no, I feel like I like that one, one of the best ones I think in the area. I feel like we have like a huge opportunity that right now, and again, it goes back to what Joe always talks about, is it was created such a long time ago, that the capabilities that would help Joe out, that would help the commission out, just everything, the way that we could communicate with businesses. I mean, it's totally different now. That I think it's going to be exciting to see, because they all seem to be, you know, again, those kind of areas too, they have like a corporation or they have a full staff and stuff like that. Whereas our town, we have one guy.
I looked at the economic development commissions.
Yeah.
So not going for what the department itself, you look at the department itself, but I always link them to the economic development commission side. And it worked well.
Yeah.
And a lot of them don't have, big staff of big departments. One of the towns didn't really have much of anything. It had a voluntary group, but no economic development coordinator or director like that. But it's something to look at and some guidance to give whoever you have a contract with. That, take a look at them and see how easy they are to use and if it meets the parameters, and you can adjust and modify to meet, what a town needs are.
Yeah.
We gotta upgrade. We have to upgrade.
Yeah, so right now, what we're actually doing is we're trying to get, not to populate the site. So what you're talking about, Zog, is perfect of where we want to go in step 2. So right now, what we're looking at, we're trying to see what the actual homepage is going to look like and how we want that to mimic. So Dave has given us a couple of options, and he's still looking to see if he can give us a couple of more other towns for that homepage. And then how we populate that homepage gets back to what you're doing and what you're saying. So those sites that you're talking about, Southbury, I've looked at that. I've looked at Simsbury. I've looked at Monroe. And I've looked at even out of state, I've looked at like Watertown, South Dakota. I was just curious because, a town named Watertown, New York, and I've looked at a lot of places. So when we come down to actually populate it, that's where we want to, I guess we want to mimic other sites. But the basis is, what's our first step? How do we begin the recipe? So that's where we are right now. So, but we can certainly give Dave the information that you gave us, so he can look at some of those sites too, and he can start pulling things off, and to give him some idea of what direction we want to go. So, but again, that homepage and what it's going to look like. I don't, Robbie, you do this for a living, but so the panels and some of the heading across the top. Dave is talking about having the drop downs across the top, but also down below with buttons. So you'll be able to pull information from 2 different places. So if you didn't want to scroll down through the first page, you could shortcut that by going across the top of the page. Would have shortcuts to get to where you want to get to. So that's where we are right now. So he's in the process of giving us some options on how to get that initial page set up. And then the population comes in and all the background information. So
I think one of these days soon we'll get Zaga and Robbie and the 2 Joes together with Dave Grant and let you, we can sit and look at these sites. We can hammer out an agreement, because Joe's right. It's in 2 phases. One is the design, then the second phase is content. Design is pretty much Dave's bailiwick. Content falls a little bit more on us of how we want to link those buttons to what data.
The design is so important, and the homepage is the key to everything. If you can't easily maneuver to what you want, you're
Right.
not going to use the site.
Yep.
On the town website that we're revising, they have a feature at the top that I liked. In it, one of the top buttons was, I want to :
That's exactly how this is. It basically starts with what I want to do. I want that.
Right.
And
And then
slide across right to what you're looking for. And that's the first thing I looked at. If I couldn't easily get to the EDC, didn't matter.
And I do have to say, and I mean this in a very positive way. When we're talking to Dave Grant was smiling at us, just like Robbie smiles at us when we talk about buttons and the terminology we're using on how to build a website. And I see Dave smirking, and so sometimes when I see Robbie, and I mean this in a good way, because the terminology or the technology, or I guess the terminology is not rolling off Joe and I's tongue.
Hey.
You guys are
But,
the, you're
if you
the
work in the, if you work in the field, you know whatever they call it today. So,
but you're the first line of defense, right? So you know exactly what when people are contacting you and finding out, you know, this. So you're going to be the ones to really determine that piece at the
Yeah.
end of the day, is you know exactly what they're looking for. Hopefully they won't bother you until they get to a certain, you know, point and they're able to find all that information without having to even really, you know, contact you, unless it's like a, you know, I'd like to learn more kind of thing. But
you know, Robbie, one thing I will say is that because our website is so terrible, we don't know what, and so that's why, to Zaga's point, we go to Southbury, we go to some of these other sites, because if you had an active and a dynamic website, you're getting feedback, you know what people are hitting on and what people are looking at. We're basically, if we don't look at those other websites, we'll have no idea, because nobody's looking at our website.
You know, for the town website, we should send Southbury a couple dozen roses. Because for the new town website, we have borrowed very heavily from Southbury. So they do a good job on everything. I don't know who they hired, but they didn't do it for the $3,000 we're paying.
But I also think they've built that out over a number of years.
Yeah.
This is not a one-shot deal for them like it's gonna be for us. Because, you know, we've been promised that this website for so long, that's why we just spun off on our own and we're trying to do it right now. But, you know, I think it's been at least seven or 8 years we've been promised a website and it's going nowhere. So, so right now we're, you know, at least it looks like we're driving in the right direction, and we're probably, to Joe's point, we're gonna have to lean on other, and just like Zaga said, look at some of these other websites and see what they're doing, and we'll just mimic that stuff.
Yeah, you take the best and whatever fits
Yeah.
our scenario. You don't have to reinvent, you know, everywhere.
Yep, thank you. But I appreciate all your hard work on that, Zaga.
No, it was fun.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
Yeah, thank you for that. Well, you did send it. I just saw the memo tonight. You did send it to the other, did all the commission members get it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. There, thank you.
Okay, so under new business, as Joe mentioned, Corey Shaker has submitted some plans, preliminary plans on the new dealership, the old Crestwood Ford, if I will, and how he's going to renovate that for his purpose for the Jeep, and Chrysler Jeep dealership that he's going to have.
And Ram, I found.
And Ram, and yeah, Dodge trucks. So it looks like, well, at least from the drawing perspective, it's not all chrome and glass like you would see over on Straits Turnpike. It's a little bit muted. It's not a
It's aluminum.
yeah, it's aluminum, but I mean, it looks like it's tastefully done.
They have a little bit of an arch over the doorway and some windows, and I don't know, did you all get a chance to look at it? I emailed it to you if you had a chance to look.
So the only thing maybe we can ask them maybe to put just to redesign maybe some peaks, or just make it a little bit more traditional front. You know, again, and just so you know, we're behind the 8 ball again, because when this preliminary meeting was held, Joe was not invited. He was not even on the list. So I'm going to get to something in a minute that I think we need to do also. But so if we come back to Corey Shaker right now, it's going to be a little bit after the fact, but maybe we can just have him put a few maybe some very minor modifications to make it look more traditional.
He has told us before that he tends to get between a bit of a rock and a hard place, because the franchisors require a uniformity of buildings. And But I still think with uniformity of buildings, that we could request something that would make it a little bit more, as we use the word New England looking. But I don't know whether we'll win that fight or not.
Yeah.
We can fight it.
Well, let's see where that takes us.
I think
Um,
the
the-
biggest thing is always, again, I don't know why I die on this cross, but if we had something that was more cut and dry and wasn't so suggestive in the planning and zoning, plan of conservation and development, but it was like a very specific thing, just like with the Ion Bank, if it was going to happen, we shouldn't ever be behind the 8 ball, because that should always be there, whether we're even involved or not. You know what I mean? Like, that would take away the pressure of us having, obviously we want to be involved, and it's ridiculous that they didn't invite you to be a part of the conversation, but whether we're invited or not, that should be a set of rules that are there. So when Joe's no longer the, chairman, when, the planning and zoning chairman changes, when 50 years from now, whatever, it's still set in place. It's not just like someone's opinion or someone, you know what I mean? Like, that was why I made such a big deal about it, because we're still talking about it so much when we do get these, that it's like, we wouldn't have to have these conversations or go back to them afterwards after they've already been approved. And you know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, yeah, planning and zoning technically is in charge of the enforcement of the plan of conservation and development. But it was not wildly specific
Right.
about architectural look. It has some general guidelines that it should be generally New England style. And that's about all the direction the plan of conservation and development has.
And I'm sympathetic to the fact, I do remember when Shaker talked about that before.
Yeah.
That he has to follow, a certain design and all that kind of stuff. But again, there's ways around it. You know what I mean? They could do both and kind of meld the two styles together and still get away with it. I
You
just
can make it look a little more granite block style, which is a little more old fashioned than pearl and glass. But
So in that same vein, I think we really have to get a letter sent to Mark Ramo, because this really should be a no-brainer that economic development should be in these preliminary discussions. We're not stepping on P and Z's toes, but I think when you have these preliminary discussions and you're inviting the building inspector and the fire marshal and all these other people, I think it's a no-brainer that EDC should be there. In a lot of cases, Joe has been working with some of these people, or has had contact with people, or has had discussions with Mark Massoud on some of these things. And so to be left off, that where he can go into that meeting and add, it's a value added situation. It's not one of negativity. It's not one to stop things from happening, but it's to be there to express an opinion or bring information that may not be remembered, to people. So I think it's really important that economic development be at these meetings. I don't know why it's so hard. People say, well, we forgot. Well, we forgot, a number of times now. It's not just once or twice. I mean, it's been, we've talked about this before. So if somebody could like to make a motion that we send a note to Mark Ramo to just add Joe Sechrist to the preliminary discussion. So, I mean, before anybody makes a decision, I see Zaga wants to say something, so.
I think it's also important that the Economic Development Commission go back to the mission that it was given, with all the responsibilities that it was given in the charter and the ordinances. And they're pretty specific. I think we can sometimes get a split personality. Do we concentrate more on trying to promote Watertown as a good place to do business and attract businesses and go out and try to promote, like Joe has done with Toll Brothers, with this other property? Are we looking to bring businesses in, or are we looking to act in a way that we actually are a design review board. And those two are not necessarily compatible. I think part of, even though we patted ourselves on the back so much on Ion Bank, but I think part of that excess of $100,000 that they spent in modifying things was a result of that, and everything started getting much too expensive. And there are restrictions that certain franchises do have. And I think if we start making, I think we have to just go back to what our original, not saying we don't want to be involved, but make sure that we are concentrating on really promoting Watertown and doing what Joe has been doing and seeking companies to come in and then sit down with them and deal with them. Well, are we going to now make a big issue that we are in essence a design review board? There has to be some way that we work together on that. The reason is that sometimes it becomes very negative and it becomes a struggle when you have agencies in town where you're looking to get business in. And I know people don't like CVS, but what the hell did you have here? We had a vacant lot. So, and Watertown is getting at a point where generating tax revenue for the town is absolutely crucial and critical. We talk about the Board of Ed budget, but that Board of Ed budget has gone up by $8 million over 6 years. And the last 4 years, it has been $1 million plus each year. And I understand where those increases are coming from. They're asking for $1.8 million this year, and they're operating with $1.9 million deficit. The cut of $500,000 that the council put in it is going to be taken out of the regular school things. Board of Ed is in a very hard position, and as the chairperson told me, there is no end in sight. This is not going to end, and it's because of costs that the federal and state mandate for services they have to provide, where one child can cost an excess of $260,000 to provide the services that must be provided by the town. And that's where those big, huge increases are coming. So those have to come. So what do? It was very painful to ask them to cut $500,000 and $400,000 out of the town manager's budget. We are, Robbie, like Robbie said, an aging population. We are not a wealthy population. We have pockets of great wealth, but the major part of Watertown and Oakville is becoming a bit poorer, and 2020 and 2021 has really exacerbated that. So what is the answer? The answer is we decimate our education system because you can't take cuts from those costs that they have to do, the services they have to provide. And we're talking about 6 children. That's all that's costing this $1.8 million increase. But they have to do that. Their hands are tied. There's no question. So a cut has to come out of the regular school. So what can you do? You can increase class size to 29. You can close a school. You can really wreck the school system that right now is decent in Watertown. Or you can raise taxes galore, or you can let the roads rot. You can cut back on any infrastructure that you do. You can cut back on town services. And there's only limited what you can cut back on that. And our situation, as far as being an aging population, is not going to get better either. And our school population itself is decreasing, but our expenses are getting so far out of whack. And there is very little that can be done on a local level. And if there are more increases coming down, and everybody's costs are going up, your gasoline costs are going up, your gas, oil, heating, and all of the expenses are going up. So, and a lot of that is because of COVID. So and the first tax increase that the council considered was 1.76 mils. So how is that going to go over? So we have to look to making sure that we don't act in our zest for really making Watertown look more like a village. And I really agree, a New England type concept is great, but we have to be very careful that we do not scare away others and don't make it so difficult for them to want to do business here that they don't bring in tax revenue. Because we've got hard choices to make in this budget year, and we can't kick the can down the road, and we really can't hide expenses and then say we'll take them up in supplemental, but we're not going to tell the people how much taxes are going to increase or how much our budget is increasing. And we'll just pick that up in supplemental spending down the road. I mean, I plan to talk to the council on Monday, because we are in a very tough situation. This is not normal times, and it's not going to be normal times for a couple of years. And we don't want to destroy the education system, and we don't want to destroy our infrastructure in town, and we do need to generate dollars. So be very careful on, I'm not saying don't do it, but be very careful on the message that you send, and the word does get around. So, you know, that's just my view.
Well, I think the point of this, Zag, is just simply to have Joe in those preliminary discussions. I don't see any harm in that. You know, it's,
Yeah, it's a lot we don't see how.
the problem that we're gonna have is that, for instance, now when this thing comes from Shaker, now if people on this commission decide to vote and say, hey, we want to make changes to that building, the first thing that's gonna happen, just like John Lombard said, it cost them X amount of dollars to make changes after the fact. That's why we don't want this. We want to at least, you know, have a voice at the table. It's a preliminary discussion. The public is not there. It's not going to be negative. It's going to be, you know, we're not here to chase anybody away. It's just that what I want to avoid is what happened with Starbucks. You know, Starbucks went down the lane, and we had no idea what was going on. And all of a sudden people didn't like what was going on. And then, so we started asking for changes. And I felt sorry for him. You know, here's $100,000 or $200,000 out of his pocket, you know, after he's already been approved, or at least he's been given the assurance on a preliminary meeting that everything is fine. But if you're missing key people in that meeting, at least if somebody goes to that meeting and says, well, hey, we, you know, maybe the commission would want a little bit of a change, a little change here, a little change there. You know, at least he knows up front that's what's going on. So he doesn't even have to, he's not even drawing up plans at that point, or the plans, the change to those plans is very easily done, at least from my perspective.
Why don't you just go talk to the town manager first? He's a reasonable person too.
Well, we could do that. I mean, but the problem is we've done that a couple of times already, and we still get left off. I mean, I don't understand.
I think the biggest problem, honestly, to, you know, just put it out there, like I enjoy doing, is planning and zoning dropped their planning responsibilities and fully went zoning, and it said, does it fit this requirement? Yes, no, bing, bang, boom. And had no idea, no care in the world as to the actual planning of the future of our town. What's coming in? What does it look like? Then people complained that we're starting to look like Waterbury. They just were focused on the zoning part of it. And what we talked about with looking at Southbury as a great example, most towns have a separate planning and a separate zoning department because they're two completely different things. With Southbury, they just happen to have people who are super on board with the same idea of what it should look like, all this other stuff. They have crazy regulations on what things should look like, and nobody's not fighting to get into that town. All these other towns, for whatever reason, Prospect, even Naugatuck and all these other places you go, and the new buildings that are getting built, they're getting built the way they want them in town, not the way that those companies want them. So I think it's a problem when we are on the back end, like Joe is saying, where then we're coming back to them and we're costing them money. We're making it seem like we're being difficult. Whereas if this was just handled prior to us getting involved, none of that would happen. It would be business as usual. It'd be another box to check off. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't see any of these companies having problems bending over backwards. When they want to come into a town, they come into a town. I mean, we saw that with Dollar General in all the towns around us. Look what happened with Morris, Woodbury, all these places. They bent over backwards and did whatever they could to get their plans approved in those towns. So I don't know. I think if planning and zoning, we're doing a little bit more on the planning side for town for the past 30 years, not now, but the past 30 years in this town, then we would have those plans in place that we wouldn't have such a random, you know, look down Main Street. Or does it make any sense to have a building where Starbucks is in the first place when it comes to traffic stuff. You know what I mean? Like just all these things. We don't look like we have a plan. And that's the problem. Everything's just kind of like pops up around town and that's it.
Well, the
So,
problem is that there is no plan on Main Street. If you look at all the buildings that have been allowed over the last 30 years and 40 years, it is a hodgepodge.
right.
And you cannot pretend that it looks like a beautiful village. It doesn't. You've got banks that were put in, drugstores that were put in, you've got gas stations where they shouldn't be, you've got sound technicians, you've got little junkie places. You have very little that actually conforms to a village concept. Maybe
That's what the
calling in
whole
a design review board or actually working to establish something like that in this town is not a bad idea. And then you
That's what
can
a
have,
planning thing is, right? I mean, that would plan for our future of what we want to see. Again, all those towns that do have those regulations, they're attracting younger families. They're attracting these people that want to walk around downtown and go shopping and you know what I mean, all that stuff. So it's like, again, West Hartford, any of those kind of things that are having, they all look like crap. I mean, Blueback Square was a car dealership. The whole Blueback Square was an old car dealership that looked like hell. And look what they did with it. Not saying that we would ever do that. Obviously, we're a different town. But you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't like that whole idea of, you know, progress for the sake of progress, development for the sake of development, just because of tax dollars and all that stuff. Otherwise, I don't want to live in a town like that. That's not what Watertown stands for at the end of the day. We're supposed to be a smaller community that people appreciate the downtowns and the shops and restaurants and all that stuff. And you don't get that when you start doing Lakewood Avenue. You know what I mean? Like, we're trying to figure out our identity and moving forward what our identity should be. And you know what I mean? All that kind of stuff. Are we a part of Waterbury or are we a part of Litchfield County? You know?
Well, I mean, you know, we can certainly talk to Mark instead of taking a vote and see where that brings us. But I certainly think that if we do things at the preliminary stage, then that is a lot more positive and a lot less negative doing it at that level than once somebody goes to a preliminary, gets no feedback from people, presents it to the P&Z, and all of a sudden there's an uproar because people aren't happy with the design or whatever. And then you end up, you know, then that's where your negativity comes in. And then that's where the builder says, well, what the hell? I came in, I presented my plans, nobody said a word. And now all of a sudden there's this big uproar in the community. So that's what we're trying to avoid. I don't want to go back and ask anybody to do anything after the fact. I mean, that's the last thing I want to do. I want to make sure that they hear what, you know, hear what we have to say. You know, and everybody's not as gracious as Ion Bank. Ion Bank couldn't have been nicer about it. They come in, we made some comments and they come back and they made some changes. But again, it's a bank, you know, it's not, I know that everything's for profit, don't get me wrong, but a bank is a little bit more neighborhoody type of business. But when you get some of these other guys, like, you know, the car business is, you know, I don't want to say cutthroat, but it's a tough business to be in because you have all these different options that you can go to. Just go on Straits Turnpike and you can see all the different options. You don't have to buy a Toyota. You can buy any number of things. So, but I think is the fact from my perspective is just that let's get this behind the scenes and not talk about it in public. And just have, so we know what's going on and we don't have to be making comments after the fact, in which could be positive comments, but they could be perceived as negative comments. I want to get out of that business. And Zaga, I know Rich, you know, he's been trying hard to get Watertowns open for business and get all this stuff behind us because people still, you know, there's a fair amount of people that still have a negative connotation of Watertown on how to build here. But then again, you know, then you get John Lombard who you know, talks about the wonderful thing that happened with the old Kmart building. So there's a guy that was changed, his mind was changed on what happened. So, and again, Joe and I were at that preliminary meeting with the Bartons. We were into that whole thing right from the beginning. So it worked out pretty well. I mean, you know, we supported them right from the beginning. When we sat in the conference room downstairs, I mean, we left there, we were very positive. I mean, we'd said nothing negative about that. We understood it because we had some background, and Joe had talked to, had correspondence with people like Target and Kohl's and a whole bunch of people. And we knew that it was a fool's errand to try to think that we're going to get a major retailer to take that entire building. So the options were few. Either we sit back and we look at that building for the next 20 years, or we have to be innovative. And I think what happened at Kmart was very innovative. And look at the outcome. I think it's a wonderful outcome for the town with all these different services. People are raving about the hardware store. People are raving about the gym, raving about, you know, Jersey Mike's. So I think it's turned out to be a fantastic building for the town. So. But, you know, I've been more than happy just to talk to Mark about it before we put something in writing. My job isn't to try to prove anybody or try to show anybody we're being negative. It's just that I know what works behind the scenes, because it did happen with Kmart. It did happen with Lombard. We talked behind the scenes before the public was involved. So, you know, we had an idea what was going on beforehand. So that's the only reason why I want Joe involved. I don't want Joe involved to try to tell P&Z what to do. It's just a friendly conversation. It's just to share ideas, and then, you know, we'll take it from there. So, but, you know, but if people want me to talk to, you know, Mark, before we do anything officially, and before we send a letter, an official letter, then I'll be more than happy to do that too, whatever.
You know, you have such a good working relationship now. The last thing I think anybody wants is negative connotations coming in.
Well, that's not what my point is. I don't want to be negative.
But let's see if it can be worked out,
Okay,
or we
Fine.
action that. You know,
okay, so I'll do that. Let me talk to Mark, and, you know, and I thought this was worked out before, and that's the only reason why it's a point of a little frustration. But let me talk to Mark, and we'll see what we can do. Okay, so I'll end it there.
Remember that town hall issue?
Yeah, town hall issue.
The reason the town hall issue was just put on there is very briefly, we had a soft opening this week back to the public. The doors are unlocked. You can come in. You don't have to check in with COVID check symptoms and all that, but masks are still required. So I think next week we will announce to the public that the town hall is completely open as long as everybody wears masks.
Okay, the last two items, C and D, we've already talked about. We talked about Jersey Mike's. We talked about Toll Brothers. So I don't think we have to talk anymore about those. So if nobody has anything else to add, I'll open the up to second public participation, which would be item 9 on the agenda.
I just wanted to say really quick.
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, okay, go.
Not to be a tattletale, but the new section of the library, has anybody driven past the library? So I was going there to drop off books, you know, in the drop off thing. And the new section, the whole front, it looks like there's like a leak. So the whole, like the fascia underneath is all coming down. So I don't know what's happening there, but
They're aware of it, and they're talking to the contractor.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't heard anything about this. I drove by and it was just all kind of like coming out of the underneath part. I was so surprised.
They had some issues with drainage with the flat roof.
Sorry, that wasn't really relevant. I just wanted to know.
That's okay. We're always free to talk here, Rob, you know that. Okay, so if we open up the second public participation, Mike, is there anybody out there for second public participation?
Yes, Mr. Commissioner, there is. I'm going to allow to talk. That's DBLAIS is identified. Allow that the person to talk first.
Okay,
And I'm going to ask to unmute.
Hi, this is Doug Blaze. I'm a resident at 14 Woodbury Road. This is my first time listening in on one of the commission meetings. So I first just want to thank everybody for your service and for all your time tonight. And it's clear you're dedicated to the town, and I'm very supportive of your mission and wish you all much success. Just two quick points. One is regarding the discussion about design guidelines and trying to make sure the rules are clearly established, and that any discussions with prospective developers or businesses about the look of their businesses. I wholeheartedly agree that the sooner you can do that in the process, it's better and less costly for everyone around. I've been commuting through Woodbury and down through Federal Road in Brookfield, and I've recently been very mindful of the differences between how each of our communities present themselves. And I've been thinking that things as simple as Waterbury, I don't see any Woodbury, I don't see any internally illuminated signs. And if the town planning and zoning could just create a guideline which would encourage or require that any new signs in Watertown be externally illuminated instead of internally illuminated, over time could really change and improve the character of the town. So I realize that's not really an economic development committee issue, but since there was such an active discussion over that tonight, I just thought I'd raise that and would encourage the committee to continue to support such efforts through planning and zoning, and I'll make my opinions known there. Secondly, just very quickly, as I was trying to learn more about the committee, I did look up on the Watertown website, and I heard the discussion that the Watertown website it looks like all the contact info for the committee members appears to be at least 15 or 16 years old on the Watertown website. I only recognize two of the names from folks who are here tonight, and it's describing terms which appear to be for the period of 2005 through 2010. So even in advance of the town website being updated in full, I would suggest that that's not the image that we want to portray. If there's any way the committee could at least make sure the contact info is updated and not so extraordinarily out of date, I would suggest that. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you for that comment, because I had asked for that website to be taken down several weeks ago. So I'm glad you told me that it's still up, and we'll make sure, because again, everything was so dated, we did want to take it down and start new.
Put it under construction.
So we were going to put under construction sign on there. So I'll go back and try to go back and get that done again. But I thank you for sharing that with me.
Sure. Thank you all.
Okay. Mike, anybody else there?
We do. We have Catherine Camara. We're
Okay.
gonna allow her to talk, and Catherine, you can unmute.
Okay, thank you. It's Catherine Camera, 31 Cottage Place again. And if Doug Blaze is still on, thank you for participating. I have a partner for tonight. So very busy meeting tonight, and I wrote down so I wouldn't forget some things I wanted to comment on. And one is what you were last talking about, wanting to be involved. I mean, it's been years I've been listening to you say that, so it shocks me because, you just talked about having been involved with the Kmart discussions, and now you're having to ask again. So I'm just puzzled, and you don't need to explain it to me, but I keep coming to the meetings, I'm listening to what you want to do, and it sounds like you did that with Kmart, and so I'm just confused why you would have to go back, and it sounds like, why were you let in the door for that one? And it's just not a regularly adopted thing, but that's up to you guys. It just surprised me. I wanted to comment, Robbie said a lot of things tonight that I agree with. And I also just want to say briefly that I could not hear Zyga Antonetti's, when she spoke, I don't know if it was like that for anybody else, but I heard some of it. I didn't, it was very hard to follow. So I may say something that maybe she had said already. I don't know. I doubt it, but I did miss a lot of what she was saying. But I wanted to comment on, when you talked about like the Dollar General, and it's correct. When you look around, Dollar General's like in every town, but why is it ours is made out of corrugated metal, basically? I mean, it looks like a trailer or something, when you can look at all these other ones that are, I'm not a fan of the store particularly, but they certainly look nicer. We could have done that. And I think the whole point, I agree with Robbie. We can dictate what businesses look like when they come in, and they're going to build their business. If they want to be here, they're going to do it. So I don't know. We seem to always cave and let them do whatever they want. I never understood that. So I thought that was point well made. And about that property, the Toll Brothers, I would seriously like to see that to be a blend, because the plan of conservation and development shows that Watertown's population is aging already. And if we want to grow as a town, we've got to have families. We've got to have younger people. Not that we don't want older people. I'm not saying that, because I'm aging myself. But we need a blend. I think that's very important. And so I do think that if you're looking about that property, that I would just ask you to do, a lot of research on our aging. I know that's in the plan of conservation and development. But I also agree, and I understand why, a lot of you say, no, we support education. We're older and we support it. But I got to tell you, it's not just Watertown. It's all over the place, that people get to a certain age and especially on fixed incomes, they don't want to support anything that they don't partake in anymore. And a lot of that's having children and the education. And it's really sad. Something has happened within our society, and a lot of that just has to do with the economics, and people have thought they could retire on Social Security and they can't. So, I think that is a problem. And I don't think it's everybody necessarily on this Zoom, but I got to say, a lot of people out there, a lot of older people, they don't want to vote for, they think anything when they see the budget go up for education. It's, they come up with their own scenarios. I went to the budget meeting. I know what's going on. I understand what's going on, and it's unfortunate. Other people, it doesn't even matter to them. They don't educate themselves on it, and they're just going to vote it down. So, it's just a problem. I don't know what solutions there are, but I just wanted to say, I think blending our community is going to be healthier, tax wise, money wise. You have businesses, you need the businesses to thrive by having people participate in the businesses and all. So that's just something I'm hoping to look at. And now I want to ask you, what paper was that legal note? I thought you said there was a legal notice about what Pilacy wants to do. Did I hear you say there was a legal notice? I didn't see it in the Town Times. I was looking at it. Or were you reading off of something?
I thought it was in today's Town Times. You're going to set up a public hearing?
I didn't see it in the legal notices in the back.
No, I think it was I think it was just in the article.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
No
so,
problem.
Yeah.
You said.
I don't think it got that far yet as far as a legal notice, but I think the reporter did make note that they were going to do a public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Because when you were talking, I went to the legal notices and I didn't see anything. But it's interesting that you're talking about this, because now I'm really concerned about the comments I told you I heard at P&Z, and now to find out they want a 60-foot, 5-foot building. And I just want to tell you that for the 6 years that I've been attending planning and zoning, Franklin Pilacy has never been turned down, not once. Everything that he's applied for, he's gotten. So I'm very scared about that 65-foot building. And I do hope that you know, I'm glad that you're at least going to mention it, but I'm pretty nervous about that. So anyway, thank you for the meeting tonight. It was very interesting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, does the commission have any final comments or? Okay, so is there a motion to adjourn?
Make the motion to adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
Zaga? Okay. All right, thank you so much for attending, and let's see if we can do this face-to-face next month.
Good.
Good.
Everybody said, okay?
Stay safe.
All right, have a good month.
Good night.
Good.
Night.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.